Welcome to Beyond the Coverage. I'm Chris Horner. In today's episode, I want to go into the Tour of Romandie. Yes, this is not the butterfly effect, it's Beyond the Coverage, so I'm not going to cover stage 3 in detail like I would with the butterfly effect. So if you haven't watched stage 3, you might want to click off. I don't want to do any spoilers for you guys. But there was some press put out after stage 2 of Tour of Romandie where Remco Evenepoel said his dip in his form from LBL seems to be behind him after stage 2. Since then, we've finished stage 3. Now, when I look at the article, it is filled and littered with all kinds of problems and comments that Remco Evenepoel has put into this article that I just had to bring it up. I wasn't even going to cover Romandie, Tour of Romandie for the butterfly effect, but once I see this article, I have to cover it because stage 2 was just a cluster of mistakes from both of the major teams when I'm talking about UAE team members and Soudal Quickstep, but especially Soudal Quickstep's Remco Evenepoel because of the article that he put out with the dip in the form from LBL. Well, first off, the very first top of the article when we're talking about the dip in Remco Evenepoel's form from LBL, it wasn't at LBL. It was at Flèche Wallonne. It was 4 days before that. So Remco Evenepoel should know that his form dipped at Flèche Wallonne when we're going up the Mur de Huy, and he couldn't follow Tadej Pogačar, who soloed that stage, and put about 20 seconds into Remco Evenepoel, where he finished just inside the top 10, 9th at Flèche Wallonne. Then he went into LBL and then blew up at LBL. On La Redoute, he started 55 spots before La Redoute started proper. And then once we got into La Redoute, he moved up to about 35th. Once you're in there, when the climb really starts hard, he moved up and then he went over the top and he did some good job on the descents and through the valleys to do some damage control. But then, of course, blew up on La Côte Roche à Falcon. So at LBL was a nightmare. But to be clear, it started at Flèche Wallonne. There's no doubt about it. And if we back it up to Brabantse where he won against Wout van Aert at his comeback start in 2025, everything was glorious for the Belgium kid. He won and beat Wout van Aert, and he won in amazing fashion. So something has to be going wrong with Remco Evenepoel when you get into Romandie, and he still isn't dominant. Let's take a look at stage 2 real quick. Okay, we see stage 2. It's about 160 kilometers long, 4 categories climbs. Most important thing to notice is the last of the climbs comes with about 45 kilometers to go in the stage. After that, drops down the descent, and then it's basically flat to the finish. Now, if you're Soudal Quickstep and you're starting stage 2, and you're at Tour of Romandie, you're only interested in stage 4 and stage 5. Stage 5 is a 17-kilometer individual time trial. Remco Evenepoel is the Olympic time trial champion. You don't care about stage 3. That summit's with 45 kilometers to go. And you didn't attack on the final climb of stage 3. You attacked at the summit of the final climb of stage 2. Sorry, I called it stage 3, but stage 2. He attacked at the summit. He didn't attack on the climb. Guys, that climb was about 3 kilometers at over 10%. Now, if you were going into that and you were Soudal Quickstep and you were doing the correct tactic and you had Tadej Pogačar like solo form, if you have that very good form, well, you still don't attack on stage 2. Why do you even care on stage 2? You wait for stage 4 and you go to stage 5. But let's say you care about winning stage 2 and you're Remco Evenepoel and you got Tadej Pogačar like form. You go into that final climb, you light it up at the bottom, you drill your whole team in there as full sprint, and you light it up because it's only 3 kilometers. It's 3 kilometers at over 10%, so you light it up at the bottom and you go over with a gap on everyone if you have returning form. That brings us back to Brabantse where he beat Wout van Aert. If you have that kind of form and that Amstel Gold-like form where he bridged across to Tadej Pogačar with the help of Skilmos the following week after Brabantse, if you got that kind of form, you go into the final climb on stage 2, team drills it into that climb and you light it up, and then you better be really good because you're talking about 30 kilometers of flat roads all the way on stage 2 that you have to hold off all the chasers behind you. Now, instead he gets to the summit, and look who's right behind his wheel. The only 2 threats really in this race. Almeida, the Portuguese rider from UAE Team Emirates, number one ranked team in the world from last year, and Jay Vine, his teammate. Both are time trial specialists, both can climb. If you're Remco Evenepoel and you're at the top of that climb on stage 2 and you look back and you got Almeida on your wheel and you're attacking at the summit going down the descent, what are you doing? Now, he says again, if I take you back into the article, that if everyone would have worked together, they would have added 3 or 4 minutes. Yeah, who cares? Who cares if you have 10 or 15, 20, 30 minutes? It doesn't matter if you have 30 minutes, Remco Evenepoel, because you have 15, 16 riders on your wheel, and one of them's Almeida. The other's Jay Vine. Carlos Rodriguez is in that group. Eddie Dunbar's in that group. Lenny Martinez is in that group. Everybody's in that group that started at Tour of Romandie with the exception of Vlasov and Gaudu. Gaudu hasn't gone especially well for a long time, and Vlasov has been hit or miss from time to time. So it's nice that Vlasov and David Gaudu from FDJ are missing from that group, but you have 16, 15 riders on your wheel, and one's Almeida. If you go over the top of that climb, you're Remco Evenepoel, and you look back and you have Almeida on your wheel, that's the same as having the whole peloton. You might as well have 150, 175 riders sitting on your wheel. If you're Remco Evenepoel and you look back and you got Almeida on your wheel. You get to the top of that climb on stage 2, the last and final climb, about 45 kilometers to go, and you look back and you saw Almeida maybe in the third group, or your director sportif was saying, Almeida's got problems, he's got problems, he's at the back. Light it up. You got 15 guys with you, and they all rotate with you, with the exception of any UAE Team Emirates riders in that group. Okay, you get time on Almeida. That's an amazing ride. But when you're going over the top of the KOM and you're tacking on the descent and Almeida's on your wheel, you haven't gained anything. You might as well have 150 people on your wheel if you're Remco Evenepoel, because the biggest threat at Tour of Romandie is Almeida. So you're gaining nothing at that point in time. All right, maybe you can drop down the descent. Maybe Almeida gets lost in one of the corners, but he doesn't really turn that bad. Almeida's pretty decent on the descent, especially if it's just him and one other guy. If it was a whole flock of guys with the 15 or 20 guys, maybe something, little gap here or there, but most likely you're not going to get rid of Almeida. He's not really that bad. I know we've seen some gaps happen to him early here in the 25 season, but most likely that's not going to happen on a descent like we saw at Romandie. So I don't see that as happening, which means Remco Evenepoel pulling for the next 5 kilometers down the descent is just a knucklehead move. Then he puts himself in big-time problems when we see that Juan Pedro Lopez attacks come in midway down the descent after about 5 kilometers of Remco riding. We see Juan Pedro Lopez attack, and guess who we see? UAE Team Emirates Jay Vine. Now Remco Evenepoel's in a big-time problems. Luckily for Remco Evenepoel, he had one teammate, Billy Lesurf, left in that group. Okay, those guys get brought back at the bottom of the descent, and that was lucky. And it was a knucklehead move to let any rider wearing UAE Team Emirates go up the move, up the road attacking with Juan Pedro Lopez, and miss that move if you're Soudal Quickstep. You cannot miss UAE Team Emirates. Then we start seeing the next attack go with Alex Bodine going up the road. We see JP Lopez and Lesurf go. This time Soudal Quickstep was fast to get on the move, but this still isn't a great move because we see those 2 riders bridge up to the first rider up there, Alex Bodine. We got 3 riders about ready to come together, but the peloton goes back and looks at 2 more. The cameras go back, to the peloton. See 2 more coming, and we see it's Fortunato, and we see it's Leonard Van Edveld coming across. Now we got 5 guys in the front group. Remco Evenepoel's back in that back group, and we'll still call it about 15 guys, give or take. Remco Evenepoel's not working anymore. He's sitting back in the group, and he's got his teammate Billy Lesurf in that group of 5. The problem is Leonard Van Edveld's up there. He's a good rider. He's had some issues this year with some injuries, if I recall correctly, but he's a very, very good rider. He's won UAE Tour. Billy Lesurf has not won stuff like Leonard Van Edveld had. So I don't see why you would want to be satisfied with having Billy Lesurf up there. But if I take you back into that article again, Remco Evenepoel says that they were happy with that situation. It was perfect. Billy Lesurf's up there. It was a great move. It was fantastic for the team. It was a terrible move. When we come into the finish, when it's all said and done, we see Lorenzo Fortunato go up the road with just about a K to go. He solos into the finish to win stage 2. But then we see Alex Bodine from EF Education get the race leader's jersey. 52 seconds ahead of Remco Evenepoel. Now, Billy Lesurf finished in that group of 4 just behind Lorenzo Fortunato. But again, when you look at the 5 guys total, Juan Pedro Lopez climbs better than Billy Lesurf most of the time. Billy Lesurf sometimes pulls out some really good climbs, but it's not always predictable, and it's not often. So I don't know if we're going to see Billy Lesurf climbing in tomorrow's stage 4 here of Romandie if he can stay with Juan Pedro Lopez, Leonard Van Edveld. He might. I'm not saying he can't. He might, but I'm saying you don't know. And you're paying Remco Evenepoel as a first-page rider. Millions and millions of dollars. And the only other guy in this race that's paid probably anywhere remotely near those kind of numbers is, of course, going to be the Portuguese rider Almeida, who's back there with Remco Evenepoel. But when you look at the finish of the stage and there's 5 guys, can Billy Lesurf beat Lorenzo Fortunato on the climbing stage tomorrow? Maybe, but maybe not. Lorenzo Fortunatus won Giro stages at the Tour, mountain stages. Leonard Van Advelde, UAE Tour. Juan Pedro Lopez won Grand Tour jerseys, race leaders jerseys he's worn throughout Grand Tours. So he's a good rider, and he can climb. I don't know if that was such a good move. Remco Evenepoel lost 56 seconds. He lost a ton of time on that stage 2. When we look at it after today's stage 3, and we go back into the article before the finish of stage 3 here, because remember, this is the article coming out after stage 2, Remco Evenepoel says, well, he's just got to not lose any more time, is what he's saying. But then we go into stage 3. What happens at stage 3 with just about a kilometer out on an uphill finish? We see UAE team members, Jay Vine, go off the front and hold off the whole peloton. And when we look back there, Remco Evenepoel finished 9th on stage 3, gained no time bonuses, and lost a few seconds, plus the time bonus to Jay Vine. Now Jay Vine's jumped over him on the general classification too, and Almeida was already in front of him from the prologue on day 1. So right now, Remco Evenepoel's in problems. Now, there is one small little upside if William Lesurf, if Billy Lesurf can have some amazing climbing legs. If he can outclimb the 4 riders that was in the breakaway with him, remember there's 5 on stage 2 total, but if he can outclimb the other 4, all of a sudden that means that Remco Evenepoel just has to follow Almeida's attack. But at some point in time, Remco Evenepoel's behind Almeida on the general classification, and behind Jay Vine, and behind the 5 guys that were up the road, and behind Lenny Martinez. So he's got to have a fantastic stage 4 tomorrow at Tour of Romandie. And then if he has a fantastic stage, we could go back in today's article and you could laugh at me and say, Horner, see, his legs are back. But right now after stage 2, when you look at the catastrophic tactical nightmare of stage 2 from Pseudo Quickstep, and to be fair, UAE team members made a big mistake on stage 2 too, because they missed the move of Billy Lesurf going up the road from Pseudo Quickstep. And you can't let Pseudo Quickstep go up the road, and Pseudo Quickstep can't let UAE team members go up the road. So both those teams were knuckleheads on stage 2 to make those mistakes. But if I take you back into stage 2, remember, if you go up that final climb easy, if you're Pseudo Quickstep, you go up it easy, and we see Viz Melissa bike that can hang on with the race leader's jersey back there, Matthew Brennan. If they could go a slower pace for Matthew Brennan, Viz Melissa bike would have rode the whole finish of stage 2, made it a field sprint there. Matthew Brennan would have kept the race leader's jersey. And when we go back and look at Remco Evenepoel's time, he wouldn't have lost any time on stage 2 except for to some sprinters that don't matter. But instead, Remco Evenepoel thinks it's a good stage on stage 2. Okay, so keep in mind, when you watch stage 4, that's why I brought up Beyond the Coverage today, because tomorrow's stage is going to be an epic one for Remco Evenepoel. If he can't win tomorrow's stage and drop everyone, he clearly does not have his form back. It is not normal. That means if we start looking at the Pranzapil, at Pranzapil's fitness, there for Remco Evenepoel's first race back at 2025, that fitness has dipped ever since Amstel Gold finished. Now, remember, won the Pranzapil, went 3rd at Amstel Gold, but bridged up to Tadej Pogacar. So why would there be a dip in the form that's all the way here at Romandie? Well, that's why you got to watch stage 4 to see. We can start checking out to see what could happen. Could be the crash at Amstel Gold caused his form to drop. Could be as allergies. Could be the cold at Flèche Wallonne's got him a little bit sick that he just doesn't know, and he has some kind of little virus going on of some sort from the rain coming up on you, from all the dirt and the mud coming off of the tires. That could be the problem, why he didn't go good at Flèche, why he went worse at LBL. But nothing can explain the knuckleism here at Tour of Romandie. So watch stage 4. Let's see what's happened. It's a lot of drama out there. Like and subscribe, and if something exciting happens on stage 4, you know I'll bring it to you on, well, Beyond the Coverage. Maybe I'll do a butterfly effect for it. So like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys real soon.